In the studio with us today is State Senate candidate Doris Rodriguez. Doris is from Lawrence. She is running for the Democrat nomination for State Senate. It's the seat that is being vacated by Treasurer candidate Barry Feingold, whom I've been really tough on this show with, like really tough. Probably more tough than I've been with most. And it's only because he has been such a passive state senator and a passive state representative. Hasn't really gotten any legislation done in 16 years. I think he's had 2 pieces of legislation in 16 years that he has championed that's gotten through. I like Barry as a person, but I don't like, well, I guess given that he's liberal, maybe it's good that he hasn't gotten any legislation through. You're going to be running for this seat, and in order to get there, you've got to get past Pavel Payano, who was here last week, and Barbara L'Italian, who is the former state representative that was defeated by right-wing Tea Party extremist Jim Lyons. If you get past Pavel, and you get past Barbara L'Italian, you've got to also get past Andover Board of Selectmen Alex Visboli. That's a pretty tough task. That's going to take a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of campaigning and hard work and a lot of organization. Introduce yourself to my listeners as to who you are, and then tell me, how do you plan on getting, those are a lot of hurdles, how do you plan on getting through all of those hurdles to become a state senator?
Sure. Thank you for having me on, first of all, and good morning to all those that are listening.
Are you kidding? I'll have you on every week if you want.
So basically, again, I'm Doris Rodriguez. I'm running for state senate, and I think that the best way to do it is taking it step by step, one step at a time. First, we deal with the primary. We'll go out, as we've been, knocking on doors, calling people, taking polls, doing meet and greets, meeting people, discussing their issues, and going forward. I think that's the best way to do it. Meeting people and seeing what they're going through, what their concerns are, and in order to address them, because there's 4 communities involved. It's Lawrence, Andover, Drake, and Tewksbury, and the needs of the communities are different throughout the 4 communities. So I think the best way to do it is the grassroots, the door knocking, the calls, the consistent polling to see where we are, and to get those voters to come out on September, because there are a lot of registered voters, but the trend is that they don't come out for the primary.
Especially the primary.
Yeah. So we need them to come out. It's very important.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think most people who vote in a final election aren't really interested in the... Because really where the big decisions get made is in the primary. Eric Cantor found that out a couple weeks ago. But why do you think people kind of hold back in the primary? Are they just not interested in, from beginning to end, or I don't get it?
I think some of them just don't know how it works.
Okay.
I'm not saying everyone. Like I said, there's a whole different type of population in each community. I think some of them are just not interested. They just wait till the end. Maybe they're tied up, work, whatever the case is, even though the polls are open from morning to night.
Voting is the easiest thing in the world to do. Like this,
yes.
I
agree.
I hear all this stuff on TV where it's like, voting is so hard, we have to make it easier. Jamie Eldridge says that all the time. We have to make voting easier. How hard is it? You call City Hall and say, I can't make it to the ballot on election day. Can you mail me a ballot? Like, we've made it so easy that, I mean, someone with an IQ of 5 could still vote.
Yeah,
and yet people still don't.
It's unfortunate that people still don't, and we have to, motivate them to come out.
Yeah. I wish I was in your district. I would still vote for you.
Oh, thank you.
I really would.
Maybe we should give out lollipops or something.
Yeah, you should be like a Mark Gray, right? Yeah. Like give cookies everywhere you go. That's how Mark got elected,
Really?
Mark was 20 points behind in the polls.
Cookies will do it.
And he started showing up at...
You sweeten them up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Because people will only remember that's the girl that gave us the cookies. We're voting for her.
All right, I'll take
people
into
are dumb.
consideration.
The voters are generally very dumb
We
when
just
it comes to
told you how
stuff
to
like that. I actually did. Right, we both did. She won't do it, though. She does, she could win.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Stop baking cookies and... Actually, here's what she does.
What?
She calls Mark Gray, and she gets Mark Gray to work on her campaign for her, and have him bring the cookies everywhere she goes.
There you go. That works.
Yeah. Yeah, that
I mean, I love Alex Visboli, but he doesn't look like Doris Rodriguez.
And then with each cookie, there should be like a fortune in it, like, you know, Chinese fortune cookies, that says something positive about you.
What's that?
Paul's mic is off.
Paul? Go ahead. So we lost
You're blaming me.
Yeah,
You're the one with the buttons.
Right. What do you think? You don't think I'm going to blame me, do you?
So I was saying they should be fortune cookies, and with every cookie that's opened, it says something positive about the candidate.
Yeah, I like the idea.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you gotta
I'll
think
run it through
outside
the committee.
Calling Mark Gray.
think
The only thing
outside
is you got to
the
put up. The only thing is you're going to have to put up with Mark Gray.
That's fine.
All right, okay. If she's willing to
I
put
get
up with
along
Mark
with
Gray for the
everyone.
cookies, she could win.
I get along with everyone. believe
Listen,
it or not.
I love Alex Vespoli, and his wife is our biggest fan ever, but I might have to defect. I'm just saying. It's not that I want it to be this way, it's just the way that it is. So you're running for state senate, you're going to be running, you've got Pavel dividing the vote, I think, in Lawrence, you've got Barbara L'Italian obviously dividing the vote among left-wing liberals. Where do you stand on the political spectrum? Do you consider yourself a moderate, a liberal, a conservative, and then we'll kind of talk about issues, even though they generally don't matter.
I would say a liberal. It just all depends on what issue we're talking about.
Yeah.
There's many issues that, you know, I'm more liberal, and then there's some that I tend to be a little bit conservative. So it just depends on what we're talking about.
Let me take the wildest of guesses. You're a little more conservative on some fiscal issues, but you're liberal on social issues.
Correct.
Right. That's the correct answer if you're going to run for office in Massachusetts.
Yeah, that's the blind answer of our generation. But continue.
All right. So let's get into it then.
Yeah.
What do you think are the most important issues facing your district? What are the issues that you're pushing in your campaign? When you're knocking on doors and you're talking to people, they say, well, what's your issue? What do you care about?
Well, there's so many issues. We could talk about the education, we could talk about unemployment, we could talk about the health care. There's so many issues that come up when I've been knocking on doors.
What are your top priorities?
My top priority is education.
What about it?
What about it? I think
It's
that
good.
we need to, yeah, it's getting better. It's getting better, but
What is getting better?
the educational gap, the learning gap.
In Lawrence?
Yes, in
Okay.
Lawrence.
All right.
As I said, there's 4 communities, so
Yeah,
it's
that's
different in
why
each
I asked.
communities. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because there was one of the communities I was speaking to someone, and they were talking about charter schools, and I think that it depends where they want to put the charter schools too, because there was a mention about putting one in Andover, and I know that some of the residents weren't happy with that. So there's a lot of different issues in regards to education that needs to be looked at and needs to be addressed. But overall, education, I think, is one of the major
What's your number one
elements.
concern with education?
My number one concern is the learning gap.
What does that mean?
Meaning that some of the students, like for example in Lawrence, they're not where they're supposed to be nationwide.
Yeah.
When you look at all the students across the nation, their aptitude is not where it's supposed to be. And it could be.
Why do you think that is?
It could be because a lot of them come from, you know, they immigrate from other countries, and they just learned English. Maybe their first language is Spanish. I'm bilingual,
Sure.
but I was born here. You know, but my parents came from, you know, the Dominican Republic.
So then
and
you think the answer to this problem of immigrants coming over and the learning gap is what? What's the answer?
the answer would be to focus on the educational plan, maybe tailor it a different way to help them get to the point where they need to be at a faster level before we just throw them off to college or, you know, to the real world.
But
where
according to what you just said,
Sounds good to me.
The biggest, I love these shallow political discussions.
Be easy on her. She's never run for office
no.
before.
I'm very used
She's
to
not a politician, so
Yeah.
just be nice to her.
I'm just curious as to if you think the language problem is perhaps the biggest problem regarding
No, I didn't say it was the biggest problem.
Okay, so that's
It
not
could
what
be-
that's
it could
not
be-
what you would attack.
It could be it could
Okay.
be many different factors. It could be a developmental factor. It could be
Developmental, yeah.
It could be many different factors that are involved in the learning process.
You want to take a phone? You want to take a phone call?
Go ahead.
All right. We have Lawrence School Committeeman Jim Blatchford, who is on the line. He's not on the line. Okay, so then I guess we're not going to take a phone call.
We can pretend he's on the line.
Yeah, sure, we can pretend.
Hi, Jim.
Hello, Jim. Yeah, we agree, Jim.
We've got about
Thank
four.
you.
We've got about 4 minutes left. Can you stay? Well, actually, can we kill the news? Is that possible?
I don't think so, because we got a lot of break after the news as well.
we have a long break after the news.
Yeah, it's always the first news break.
Well, can we go through the news and then take the long break and come back? Like, we got to give her more time.
Gotcha. All right, you know what? I will do that for you.
Yeah, I don't want to get you in
Thank
trouble.
you.
Hey, if I
You're gonna be getting a phone call.
I'm just
What did you do? You killed the news. Oh, I didn't tell Tom he could do that.
Yeah, quite far. I'll wait. And,
I don't want to get anybody in trouble. Like, if he's gonna yell at anybody, have him yell at me.
All right, good.
All right.
I'll tell him that.
978-454-4980. We have Doris Rodriguez. She is a candidate for state senate. For the state senate, trying to fill Barry's seat. What's the number? I can never keep the numbers of the districts right because I really don't think most people care. What district is it?
It's the second Essex and Middlesex.
Second Essex and Middlesex district is, if anyone's going to remember that 5 seconds after I say it, including me. Right? Yeah. So, if you become a state senator, what is going to be your first piece of legislation that you're going to file? Obviously, I'm assuming that in your head you've thought, okay, if I win this is going to be the first thing that I do.
Well, I don't have one first thing to do. I have several plans in motion. I have, we're working on a personal care assistant issue that's going on with the health benefits. Looking at a proposal. We're working on that. We also are thinking about, and also another legislative piece for the educational part that I mentioned. And also there's one other. Am I on?
You're on.
Okay, there's one other.
I was just pulling down the box so that it didn't feed back on you.
Okay, no problem. And then there's the last one would be in regards to funding, additional funding, maybe allocating funds from a different area. But again, that's, you know, if I get to that point.
Have you followed? There's been a lot of controversy this week about the buffer zone. We were talking about it in the first half hour. Not sure if you were listening. Hopefully you were. A lot of the local candidates have come out based on whether or not they want money from the abortion industry or they want support from the pro-life industry. It's an outrage. It's anti-woman. Do you have any thoughts on that? Have you followed it? Do you have any thoughts on the Supreme Court's ruling against buffer zones around abortion?
I haven't read it, honestly. I know it just came out a couple of days ago. I haven't sat down to read it, but I think that they need to put, if they took the buffer zone out, they need to put some kind of form of protection.
Yep.
It's a public safety issue, I believe, because it's there's been incidents prior in these type of zones. So I still think that they need to put something in place if they're not going to keep the buffer zone.
I completely agree with everything she said.
Where have these incidents been?
In Boston. There was an incident in Boston a couple of years back.
There was one incident we talked about earlier in the first show. I mean, the first hour.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
okay.
Right.
But it's not only here. There's other places as well.
Okay. I'm not going to get specific, but actually there hasn't been really any other incidents.
Okay, well, maybe just one, but I still think it's still a safety issue. If,
Right,
if
me
a
too.
young woman
Yeah.
wants to go and get services, she should be able to and feel protected and safe.
I totally agree. 978-454-4980. Grace has a question.
I think it's a safety issue too, but
I think it's a safety issue
it's
too.
the pre-born that are getting the violence against them.
Yeah, stop picking on her, Paul.
I'm not.
Grace, you're on the air.
Hi, this is Grace Marie Tomaselli, actually. Hi, I have a question, and it pertains to that personal care attendant policy that she is pursuing.
Uh-huh.
And I was just wondering, what is it actually that she sees as the area that is of concern? And I had some comments as far as the way the Medicaid agency is paying, the PCAs. They're not using the date of application or the date of eligibility. They're using a date when the screening takes place, and people, are shortchanged several months sometimes just due to the fact of the bureaucracy of, things take time to do the paperwork. And I'm finding many people are being prematurely institutionalized because of the delay. So I didn't know if that was her area of concern. It's the caregiver who is being harmed, the caregiver and the PCA attendant.
All right, let's give her a chance to answer that. Sorry.
Yes, so part of it does involve that, but like I mentioned to Tom, it's something that we're working on, and this is something that we would like to propose if we're in office. We don't have anything set in stone. We're still doing research, and we're still talking to a lot of people that are concerned and are involved in this area. So at this point, I wouldn't be able to elaborate.
All right.
But thank you for your call.
Yeah, thank you for the call. 978-454-4980. I actually only give the phone number out of habit because I really don't want people to call in. But if you want calls, I guess we'll take calls. So your main focus is education, and it seems like healthcare. You're running as a Democrat. Are there any issues that you disagree with your party on that you're going to come into the legislature with, where if you win the state senate seat, you're going to be at odds with your own party on? Like, everybody disagrees. Well, I shouldn't say everybody, because the Kool-Aid drinkers don't disagree with anything their party says. But there's got to be. I know you, and I know that you're not a follower. You're a leader. Are there any issues, or if you have anything off the top of your head that you disagree with your party that you're going to be butting heads with them on?
At this time, from the top of my head, no. But I do believe that if I feel that something is incorrect, I will say something about it. I'm not just going to go, with the party. If I think it's incorrect, I'm going to stand and say why I feel that it shouldn't be that.
How do you not vote for her? Like, I just agreed with everything she said. I didn't understand a word of it, but I still agree with it.
You're being a bobblehead.
I am being a bobblehead. That's exactly correct.
In other words, so if there's a piece of legislation,
yes,
if it's something that I disagree because the community disagrees with it, then I will voice that opinion.
Well, that's good. So if the people of Lawrence want, for example, charter schools, I know State Representative Diana DeZoglio is getting creamed on the charter school thing because she voted to lift the cap on charter schools, which to me just makes sense, but I'm not running for office. But if the people of Lawrence said, no, we want more charter schools, even if you didn't really agree with that, you would give the people of your district what they want. I'm there for the district. Okay.
Very interesting.
The only thing is that you remember that this position involves 4 communities. So I'm not going to be able to please everyone.
Right.
Okay, because it's this wide span. We have people from Andover, people from Tewksbury, Dracut, and Lawrence.
Right.
So the needs are different.
Who is Willie Lantigua supporting in this race?
I'm not sure.
No?
That's something
you need to know.
Yeah, I actually don't know.
No?
No.
Why does she need to know that?
Well, she needs to know.
I've heard through the grapevine things,
that's what we're looking for.
That's what we're looking for. Tell us what the grapevine told you.
No.
I'm very friendly with the grapevine.
That's your job. That's your job.
Come on. Damn it. I thought we were going to get some good breaking news today, but she's holding back. And she has every right to do that. I would never force her to answer a question she doesn't want to answer. She doesn't want to answer.
Okay.
All right, so we have what? Jim called back. All right, Jim Blatchford, you are on the Paying Attention radio program, hopefully with a question for State Senate candidate Doris Rodriguez.
Hi, Doris. How are you doing?
Hi, Jim. Good.
Well, I don't know if you've seen the latest school committee meeting, but I spoke to Tom about this, and Tom knows my concerns of what happened. And recently the budget was given to us by the receiver. And when I say budget, I mean the overview, because there was no actual line item budget, so we don't know how much they're spending on books, how much they're spending on ink, how much they're spending on a individual teacher that works at the school. And since we were taken over by the system, we really had none of that transparency. And being the state representative for Lawrence, we're under receivership. I'd like to know your opinion on the receivership that Lawrence is currently in, and if you plan to do anything to change it or keep it the same.
Great question. So I guess what he's asking is, the state has taken over the Lawrence Public Schools. It has kind of changed the way it operates. What are your thoughts on all of that? Are you going to be a state senator voting on that money, voting on that receivership, voting on that state control?
I believe that it would need to be looked at. I don't think it's going to last forever, Jim. So once I'm in that seat, I would be able to look at everything that's going on, and then we'll take it from there. We'll sit down and analyze, what's the best course. If we believe that it's time for them, to give the school system back to the city, then that's what we'll vouch for. But until I'm in that seat, I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Yeah, Jim. How dare you ask her a question that doesn't help her campaign? Anything else?
Well, thank you, Jim. Thank you for calling.
978-454-4980 is the phone number here. I'm paying attention. So what do we have? We have a 4-minute break we have to do. So let's do like that 4-minute break thing. We'll come back, and when we come back, we're going to give Doris like 3 or 4 minutes to tell people how they can help her campaign. Does she have a website? Does she have a Facebook page where they can donate money? How they can contact her campaign to volunteer, to hold signs, as we do with every other candidate after the break.
There is one big question that you ask every candidate that you haven't asked Dolores yet.
What is that?
What are you going to do for white people?
Oh yeah. Well, now you blew it though. Now I can't ask her that question.
Oh, you can ask her that.
Quite frankly, I don't care what she's going to do for white people. Doesn't really matter to me at all.
All right.
When was the last time we had
do the same for everyone.
When was the last time we had a good-looking state senator?
Well, I don't know. I have to look into that a little deeper.
I mean, look at Therese Murray. God, talk about skewing that number. 978-454-4980 is the number here on Paying Attention. You don't really have to call it. I just kind of say it out of habit. You do it to fill time. Take a quick break. When we come back, you're going to find out how you can help Doris Ortiz. I always do that. Doris Rodriguez, in case you would like to help her campaign. She is from Lawrence. She's running for state senate against Pavel Payano and Barbara L'Italian for the Democrat nomination for the 2nd Essex and Middlesex State Senate District. Back with Paul Morano and Doris. Then if you want to stick around with us as we talk about other stuff, you're free to hang around. I would be happy if you stayed for the whole show.
Thank you.
But we're going to talk about some tough issues, and it's going to be pretty controversial. I don't know that you're going to want to be here, but you are free to stay.
All right.
All right. Back after this on Paying Attention, where everybody gets it, even state senate candidate Doris Rodriguez.
Oh, gosh. I called you Dolores.
And every song sounds like every other song, then that's not so good. In the studio with us is Doris Rodriguez.
Which one of your favorite bands?
Yeah, what kind of music you like?
I like a little bit of everything.
Hold on, I don't feel
please.
I do, honestly, I do.
So what do you like? What do you like? You like merengue, bachata? What do you
I
like?
like the Spanish. I like the merengue, the bachata, the salsa.
You like Elvis
I like
Crespo,
all the
Grupo
Spanish.
Martinez?
Yes, and then for English, I like R&B. I like hip hop. I like some type of rap. I like rock.
I haven't heard any white music yet.
I like my brother plays in a rock
White
band.
music, you racist.
Did you hear me, Paul? Did you hear me? My brother plays in a rock band.
Do you like classical music?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay. Name one. No, forget it. I'm just kidding.
Mozart.
All right, there you go.
I do have breaking news for everyone, even though Doris is here, and it's not really about Doris, but we have some breaking news. I'm about to post it on Facebook. But, of course, because my WCAP listeners are so loyal to me, I want to make sure you have the story first. The controversy over Lawrence police officer William Green. If you remember William Green, he was suspended. The administration was in the process of trying to fire him. He went on a rant at several city council meetings accusing the police department of being racist, anti-Latino, targeting immigrants. And our understanding was, actually it wasn't an understanding, we know for a fact that he met with Mayor Rivera this week, that he was offered to have his job back if he just stopped talking publicly and denigrating the police department, denigrating the city, which is, I'm not saying that's what he was doing, but that's what was proposed to him, and he turned it down. Our breaking news now is that as of last night, Lawrence police officer William Green has been reinstated as a police officer and actually went back to work last night. So hopefully the controversy is over, and hopefully Mr. Green, and I have taken no sides on this controversy. I've taken no sides on the controversy because I know that there's a backstory, but I don't know what the backstory is. And I don't like to take positions unless I'm on pretty good solid footing as to what the backstories of what's going on are. But hopefully this will be the end of ranting at city council meetings calling the Lawrence Police Department racist, because that's certainly not something I agree with. I know all these guys. I'm not going to say there are no racists on the department, but certainly systematically, there isn't a systemic racism problem in the Lawrence Police. If there is, it would be among Latino officers. But we don't ever talk about that. We don't ever talk about the Latino racism in Lawrence. You're running for state senate, since we're talking about this. All we hear about is white racism in the media. But you live in Lawrence, so you see what I see. You see the Dominican racism against Puerto Ricans, the Puerto Rican racism against Dominicans, and the fact that both of them agree on one thing: Whitey's racist. If you're a state senator, how do you plan on bringing those groups together? How do you plan on, because you've got such a diverse district. You represent Lawrence, which is mostly Latino, but broken up among different groups. Then you go into Andover, which is all white. and then you go into Drake, which is even whiter, and then you go into Tewksbury, which is like bleach. So how do you plan on representing all of these different factions? It's a really bizarre district for anyone to represent.
It is a bizarre district, but as I said earlier, and as I always mention to everyone, I don't think it should be a matter of you're white, you're Hispanic, you're Asian, you're Indian. It shouldn't matter. Everyone in the community needs to be represented. We all need a voice. And the way my message is to be that vocal bridge between communities. Why? Because I am bilingual. I could speak both languages. I could understand both cultures. I was born here. I'm American. I'm educated. You know, I understand, you know, both levels, you know, poverty and rich. I understand. I could communicate with everyone. I get along with everyone. So I think I could be that voice.
Do you agree with Tom? Do you agree with Tom that there is racism in the area?
I would say back a couple years ago, there used to be. It used to be more
prominent.
Yeah, but now it's less actually.
Yeah,
I think so.
So you think the racism situation in Lawrence has gotten better?
Yes, it has.
Okay.
I think so.
I think among, because we're going to talk generalities now, right? Everyone's going to call me a racist, but we'll just call it like it is. I think among white Laurentians, it's gotten a lot better. But I still hang around. I have friends that are Puerto Rican, friends that are Dominican. I'm even friends with our good friend Jorge Gonzalez, who's from Ecuador.
Ecuador,
right?
yes.
When you're sitting alone with them, and we're all having a Presidente beer after last call at a party, and if you're sitting with a majority Dominican group, they will savage Puerto Ricans. And when you're sitting with a group of Puerto Ricans and they've had a couple of drinks, they will savage Dominicans.
And you know what, Tom? It can happen, and it does happen, but you know what? At the end of the day, when you see them walking with their girlfriend, they're the opposite.
Right, oh, I agree. I agree.
So...
What do you mean they're the opposite? They have
so in other words, if
their behavior doesn't conform with what they're saying.
Exactly. So if it's a Puerto Rican male, you'll see him with a Dominican girlfriend.
And they're okay with that.
And they're okay with that.
Yeah.
Reminds me of Donald Sterling.
It's
right?
like it's become like the norm now. So
isn't it sad though that we have, because of the inadequate public education system and the propaganda of the news media in Hollywood, that people are programmed today to think that words equal something. In other words, if someone uses the N-word, they must be a racist. Whereas I know people who are the least racist people in the world, but if a black guy went over and started a fight with them, when someone's saying something mean to you, you say something mean back. It doesn't necessarily mean that you subscribe to a philosophy that is around those words, but if a black guy goes over and punches you in the face and you slip and you're mad and you use the N-word, that doesn't therefore equal your identity is a racist.
I think it does indicate something though, Tom. I mean, if somebody punched me or you in the face, I don't think automatically that a slur would come out.
Right, but we're a lot more intelligent than most people.
Well,
and let's face it, racist words, racist ideology are very dumb. I mean, it's unintellectual.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people out there that just, it's not their fault. Maybe they were born that way, maybe their parents used drugs, maybe they shouldn't have any opportunity. But they use these words because that's what's in their environment. I hear the N-word in Lawrence 500 times a day. If you want to hear the N-word, if you want to be appalled, sit at Taco Bell at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when Lawrence High School's getting out. Yeah. And the kids are walking home. And it's N-word this, and N-word that, and N-word this. And they're not black.
They're not black.
But that doesn't mean that they hate blacks. It doesn't mean that they're racist against blacks. It's just a word. And that's, I think, what we have to get. If you become a state senator, I'm going to look to you as a leader on this issue to champion that, Doris, because as a Latina, you can get away with putting in the faces of the people who promote this propaganda how full of crap they are. That just using a word doesn't equal someone's identity, doesn't equal their political ideology or philosophy. That it's really deeds, right? Like you were saying, there are Dominicans who they say those things, or Puerto Ricans who say those things, and then they have, you know, a girlfriend of that race.
That's true.
This is why I'm supporting her. Right? All right. Why don't you just tell people how they can get in touch with you, how they can donate money, if you have a website, you have a Facebook page, all that stuff.
Okay, so you could go and visit my page. It's www.voterodriguez.com, and you'll be able to see there my information, why I'm running, and issues that I'm addressing. And you could also donate if you wish to donate. Thank you if you do. Also, if you want to be a volunteer, you can sign up through there. Again, it's www.voterodriguez.com. I also have a Facebook, which is Facebook/DorisRodriguez.com. I believe it's VoteDorisRodriguez.com, excuse me. And the actual webpage has a link to the Facebook as well. You could also give me a call, 978-375-3015. And if you wish to send donations directly by mail, you could mail it to my P.O. Box. It's Committee to Elect Doris Rodriguez, P.O. Box 471, and that's in Lawrence, Massachusetts, 01842.
All right.
I was just going to say, before you leave, just finish this one sentence. Vote for Doris Rodriguez because...
She is the vocal bridge of the 4 communities.
Right.
The vocal bridge?
The vocal bridge.
She's the vocal bridge of all 4 communities.
There you go.
I totally agree.
There you go. Maybe we could have the 3 of them in here for a little debate.
Well, that's the only question I didn't ask, right? So would you be willing to do a debate with Pavel and Barbara, who probably won't show up because she's afraid of me?
If they're both here, yes.
Okay, what if only Pavel's here?
I don't see it's worthwhile.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Because Barbara's the
I think that's the first candidate that's ever said that in 12 years. It's not worthwhile to be on my show if she doesn't have all of her.
Well, she probably thinks that Barbara's the...
Well, but
I'm not saying because of your show.
No, I know,
Right.
but what that does is that allows Barbara to dictate whether or not there's going to be a debate. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you come, I ask you questions, I ask Pavel questions, and then I'll ask an invisible Barbara who's not here questions, and Chris plays crickets.
Oh, crickets in her place, huh?
Yeah, that's how we actually do that. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about a whole bunch of other stuff. You're certainly free to stay if you want to. Want to talk a little bit about the gubernatorial race. Want to talk about why is Warren Tolman so completely out of touch with reality. When I found out that Dan Rivera was supporting Warren Tolman, I sent him a big tweet and said, I wasn't sure who I'm voting for in that race because I'm pulling a Democrat ballot, but if Dan's supporting you, maybe that's pretty much good enough for me. Until he called into this radio station a couple weeks ago from the convention and started tweeting out how his #1 priority is to go after the NRA. That's not your job as the Attorney General. But he has to attack Rush Limbaugh and do the DNC talking points, and he's going to attack the NRA as if really that has anything to do with being Attorney General. We're going to talk about that when we come back.
All right. Well, thank you for having me, Tom.
All right. Are you going to stick around or are you leaving us?
I'm going to go.
Oh, damn.
Well, it was good meeting
Well, we
you.
can always just let her keep talking. What, we let you keep talking while you stay?
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for coming. Will you come back, though?
Yes, I would.
Definitely want to have you back.
I would. I
All
would
right.
come back.
So
and,
if I hold
and I'll think about the debate.
All right, because I'm going to have a debate whether you show up or not. So if Barbara doesn't come and you don't come, it's going to be a free hour for Pavel. You don't want that. Right?
We'll see.
This has been the most awkward interview I've ever done in my life. Like I'm paying attention where everybody gets it. Even State Senate candidate Doris Rodriguez.
We'll see. I like that answer. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.